In this lesson, I'm going to show you how we can start creating a database. So originally when we introduced this course, I showed you how you can log into your phpMyAdmin and add in a brand new database that then you could utilize within your code. Well, there is another way to do that, and we can do that within our code itself. So maybe if you had a setup file or something like that that you want to run and initiate to set up your actual database, so set everything up from scratch, we can do that in PHP as well. So over here we've got all of our connection here, and first I'm going to look at procedural connection, and where we've got our initiation here. So maybe this one I'm going to update to die. So once we fail that connection, then we don't want to continue with the connection. We want to throw that error and output that error. So I'm going to just update that to just be die instead of that echo. And now we can continue to work on our creation of the database. So this is all the connection settings that we walked through within the earlier course. And now we need to create some SQL to run. So I'm just going to create something called a query. And within the query, this is going to be the same thing that we run here within our SQL here. So if I was to create a brand new database, just show you what happens here. And if I do run it, so that just simply creates that there. We also have a few options as well. So I can actually run through SQL here, and I can do something like create, and I can create a database. So specify what we're creating and give it a name, of course. So I'm just going to call it my DB, and when I run it, we see that we actually create the my DB this way as well. So we can run these queries. So I can just copy that out, bring that back into my code here, and put a query here. And of course, I can't recreate the same one, so I'm going to give it appendix of A, and so it's going to create a brand new database, my DBA. And also notice one thing here as well, that it is changing them all to lowercase. So probably a best format would be to already by default change it to lowercase, as it will do that anyway. So then we just need to initiate that query. So my SQL I, and the method's going to be called query. And the first thing we need to do is link to our database connection so that it knows that where we're connected to. So that takes in all of this information, translates it over to the my, and that does not look right, so I think that I have a misspelling there. So that's MySQL I query. And then next, all we need to do is specify the actual query. And of course, we can just copy this and write this in here as well if we wanted to. So that's it does the same thing. So this is just holding the contents here into the variable query. So let's check this out and go back out to con1, and we'll see what happens. So we should have actually put something in the output there, but let's just refresh it, and we see that we've created now a brand new database that we have access to. Now, if we want to do this within the object-oriented format, we can do this as well. So I'm going to go ahead and create a quick database within that con2 settings. So literally, this is all the same thing where we've got our initial connection. And I'm going to take that same query there, bring it into here, and show you just how similar everything is. So I'm going to create a database, and I'm going to give it DBB. So that's going to be our query. And then I'm going to actually, in this case, I'm going to output our content here so that you can see what it's going to output. So we're using the link object, and it's a query that we're initiating. And the query is just going to be defined here. And let's check this out and see what happens. So we see we get this connected and we get 1. So 1, this is a Boolean response. So it could be either 0 or a 1. So a 1 response means that it was created. So that's a true response. So let's go back out here and refresh it. And now we see that we've created that database within that type of, within the object-oriented as well. We see how really easily we can create these databases. So whether you've already set up that database using phpMyAdmin or another piece of software that accesses your database information, or whether you do it in coding, it all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And a lot of the times, we usually don't keep this creation of database stuff within the code unless you've got a setup file that you want to run, and that's going to set up all of that database, because most of the time you're just connecting to an existing database. So you won't see this a lot within the code, but again, it depends on how you're utilizing the code and what you need it to do.